If you're expanding a little slower, then you can build those people from within. You really have to make sure that time is used wisely with these people. If you don't have the accountability systems in place to go with the structure, then it doesn't matter what your structure is. You can't grow if you're not willing to hand over tasks to people. Really good management is about passing the ability to solve problems down. It's just important that you build the trust early on with them. And if you say you're going to do something, do it. I know
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of the Lift Your Shop podcast. I'm Kelsey Altram with Lift Auto Repair Marketing, and today we have an amazing guest, Amanda Drake from C&C Automotive. 6 shops. Hopefully soon to be 7. We don't want to jinx it or anything like that out in the Augusta, Georgia area. But Amanda, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So we're gonna obviously running 6 shops is a lot. There's a lot of different expertise and things that you definitely have. But before we kind of dive into sort of that management hierarchy and process and how you go about doing things, I'd love to hear your journey a little bit, like how you kind of started in this industry, and we'll take the steps from there.
Yeah, I would say it's a mix of a very common story with a very unique story. So I'm a 3rd generation shop owner. My father and my grandfather loved working on cars, started a business in their garage in the late 70s, and they built it to a very large one shop operation in the early 2000s. And I, at the time, worked there part-time through high school and college, mainly books and answering phones, clerical work. I was going to college for a pre-med biology degree. I did complete that degree, but I decided towards the end of my senior year of college that I did not want to stay in school another decade. I was burned out, and I decided to explore some other options. And my father was very persuasive, I guess, helpful in me making my decision of what else to do with my life. I ended up getting a minor in business, and I really took to the business side of things. So I ended up saying I wanted to stay on board. I became a service advisor. I knew right away that we wanted to go multi-location. I didn't think, me and my father are very strong personalities, like both of us. So, us working in the same building long-term seemed kind of a far stretch, but also I wanted to say I contributed to this business. I didn't want to just say I joined it. I wanted to say that I grew it with him. So we wanted to open another location kind of early on. In 2011, we did open our 2nd location. I managed that shop for several years. In 2018, we opened our 3rd shop, and we've pretty much just opened one a year since then. So it's a little bit of a slower growth model getting going from that one store to MSO, of 3 or more. But we've kind of kept it rolling pretty steady here since then. And yeah, like I said, it's a unique situation in that, I've got a medical background initially, but it's very traditional. And also I'm a female. You don't see as many of us, running shops. But it's that traditional of, early 70s, 80s, father, son starting a business and, it growing. And they definitely had some rougher years in the beginning getting it going. And, I was fortunate enough to add on to what was already a very successful business model.
That is super cool and super interesting. And obviously, you're definitely making waves in the industry. I think you're doing an amazing job. But for those that may be curious, just to take a step back in terms of the size of the shops, are they all the same size? Are they all various? And then we can dig into maybe how you guys went about picking the sizes that you wanted.
Yeah, they're very different. There's a range because most of our shops are acquisitions. So it's very hard to have a cookie cutter acquisition that you find and get. We obviously have, preferences on everything. At our first store is very large. It's 30,000 square feet actually. And then, we've got a couple stores, we go all the way down. That's a 35 bay shop total. And then we've got our smallest store is a 5 bay shop.
Mm.
So it's kind of all across the board. And I would say right now we typically are looking for 6 bays or more when looking for acquisitions, because we've kind of felt that that's the sweet spot there, 6 to 10 bay really facilities. You start getting larger and you're just not always maximizing that space. And it also can just start to add a lot of chaos and logistic issues. So that's kind of what we're looking for, but they are those sizes just because that's what was available and we liked the location a lot of times. So they had a great frontage, but the buildings were just of various sizes. And in our mind, we just wanted to max out, what each building was capable of.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's not the first time I've heard that 6 to 10 range is kind of a good sweet spot that MSO owners have started.
Yeah.
Like
a lot of people like that 10 or 8 to 10, but they often call, there's a cost that comes with the bigger size, and there's more risk of, getting up and over your nut each month in the very beginning. And you have to look at all aspects of it. Our number 6 shop is a 6 bay and it's been very, very successful. So, that's where my cutoff is now, is about that 6 bay. Okay. But there's some people that are like, I only want an 8+ bay shop, and that's their preference.
Okay, gotcha. No, that's awesome. And then in finding these deals, were you guys typically the ones that have to like kind of reach? You did kind of like a analysis and like, oh yeah, these locations are kind of good. We'll reach out to the owner. Did it just kind of happen like where, hey, yep, we know that this is what they're doing, and the owner reaches out to you guys, like kind of things like that?
We have more people coming to us now just because, we've been around for a while. People know we're expanding. In the beginning, or for some of our acquisitions, we've scouted the area. And if we saw a repair shop that we liked, we've approached the owners to see if they wanted to sell. And that's worked out well a few times. So, anyone looking to expand, I would say, identifying the area. And then if you see a shop that you really like, it doesn't hurt to reach out to that owner and just see if they're thinking about retiring. There's a lot of people or shop owners in their 60s right now that very well may be wanting to retire or in the next few years. And you can set up a plan. That's happened. As far as us reaching out to them, I would say that's happened the majority of times. And only 1 or 2 of those, we've had maybe a hint from somebody. Somebody said, hey, you might go talk to so-and-so because they may be retiring soon. And some of them ones, we've literally just door knocked. Nobody's given us any indication that they wanted to retire or sell. And we've just liked the way it looked and where it was at, and we've gone after it.
Very nice. Okay, cool. Well, now obviously there's been a lot of success there. You guys have grown to 6 shops, soon to be more. But there's a lot of obviously accountability that goes into that, of running these different shops. There's different personalities at each shop. And so how do you go about kind of systematizing it all and making sure that you're aware of that accountability that is taking place at each shop?
Yeah. And I think with this, we've definitely had the benefit of the slower growth, like I talked about, because it is harder to put these types of structures in place quickly. I feel like if you're doing it quickly, you're really going to have to invest in and find some people that are already experienced in being a district manager or running multiple locations to help you. If you are expanding a little slower, then you can build those people from within. And we've definitely done that with our team, because we believe in letting people move up in the company. So a lot of our district managers are or people higher up in our operations department started out as technicians, and they built their way up through the company. But I do think it's important to have like a tiered management system to your operations department when you have 3-4 stores plus. So especially if they're in different regions. So some of ours or the majority of ours are kind of around that Augusta, Georgia, which, Augusta sits right on the border of Georgia and South Carolina. So that region goes into South Carolina to some degree. And then we have a store in our Columbia area. So they're spread out a little bit. And, you can't just, you start getting 5, 6 stores, you can't just have one district manager over all those stores. You then have to have district managers, and then you need to have somebody over your whole operations department. Where we've kind of differed is we give those district manager responsibilities to more senior managers in some of our stores, because those stores have matured to a point where the manager does not have to do a lot in the store day to day anymore, because they have like a lead advisor, they have a foreman, they kind of the management requirements in the store are not as high. And so we have given that manager some district manager responsibilities by assisting other stores in that area that have let's just say, a less experienced manager in charge of them, like a newer store.
Yep.
By doing that, we don't necessarily have all this added corporate overhead of a bunch of people whose pay is strictly corporate. And they don't necessarily have any one place to be at any one time. That's a lot of freedom that can be given to an individual that doesn't necessarily have ownership in the company like you do.
Yeah.
Like you and I do. We have freedom of time, but we have a stake in the company. And so our time is spent wisely. Sometimes you can run into an issue where you put these district managers in place. They don't have the ownership in the company, and their time might not be used as wisely as it could. So that's just some things I've seen happen when people are structuring their operations department for multi-shop. You really have to make sure that time is used wisely with these people. And you have to have, and we've talked about this before, but you have to have very clear expectations of what those district manager roles are. And you have to have really clear ways and consistent ways of tracking and auditing that they're handling it. And then you just have to have consistent communication with them. So, you have a scheduled meeting with your managers every week. So there's just some key parts there. And then I think the part that a lot of people forget is the tail end, the coaching that goes along with what you expect and what you audit. If you give them expectations and you track them and they're not performing the way they should, but you provide them no feedback or coaching as a result of what you tracked, well, then the first 2 steps were completely wasted, you know? So I do feel like it's important that managers or shop owners learn to follow the full process of holding their team accountable to what they expect. But I would say, those models, along with just structuring that operations branch, the way that it works best for you. And it's such a weird, it varies so much by MSO, because you can't directly apply what I've done to maybe a company that's spread out across the US and is trying to open up 5 stores in 1 year. That method's not going to work. So you really have to find the method that works for you, or the structure for your operations management side that works for you, but then you just have to hold them accountable to what to expect. And if you don't have the accountability systems in place to go with the structure, then it doesn't matter what your structure is, because you just don't have the systems in place to hold them accountable to what you need them to do.
Yeah, no. And you just hit on a lot of amazing points, and I want to dig in a little bit onto certain aspects that I hear, and definitely questions that I've heard through the grapevine or through these discussions from others. And so one is like the accountability portion, but what to keep them accountable for. Like when people start managing now this hierarchy of an MSO, and they have this person under, like, oh yeah, they're my district manager, they're my regional director, whatever title you're giving them, like, what are you holding them accountable to? I guess let's define what, maybe are there certain metrics that you're looking at, things like that.
And I think, first of all, when you're creating, say, a job description, you start with like vague responsibilities or topics that people are responsible for. So if you look at a district manager, you start with, okay, they're responsible for making sure the managers do what they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. They're responsible for visiting the stores at least once a week and making sure that, the checklist for each store, everything is checking out correctly. And that may measure everything from cleanliness to KPIs. Mm-hmm. So you start out with that, and then you start thinking, okay, what with these basic things that they're responsible for, what are the actual actions that they need to take on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? So one of the best documents I feel like ShopFix gives clients is just a very simple document, a checklist of a daily, weekly, monthly for responsibilities. And the main one that they have is one for managers. But what actions correlate with the things you want them responsible for? Well, they're supposed to audit the store once a week. Okay, well, then they need to do a store visit once a week. They're supposed to hold the managers responsibilities to hold the managers responsible for what they're supposed to do weekly. Okay, well, are they meeting with the managers? They have to have a meeting with the managers weekly, and they have to go over their responsibilities and audit so part of their responsibility is auditing the managers. So you look at what they're responsible for, and then the actions, and then you come up with ways that you could track that and audit it. Like, how can I verify that they're doing what they're doing? Okay, they're supposed to visit the store and they're supposed to fill out an audit checklist for the store. They turn those in to corporate when they're done with them. Okay, great. I've got what they're responsible for, an action they need to take, and then a way to hold them accountable to it, and audit it, that they actually did it. And then finally, where in the process is someone actually going to review that and then coach them or give them feedback on what we found? So in the example of a store audit, that's been turned into corporate. Myself or the head of operations under me will review what was turned in, and then they will, in that next meeting, they will review kind of what was found and go over some of the feedback from there. So those store audits are really helpful for multiple levels. But then you're also, when you give them expectations, it obviously comes down to KPIs. You probably know a lot of the KPIs that this industry looks at. So, you're looking at average RO, close ratio, ticket quote, all that good stuff. So they are looking at those weekly, and holding the managers accountable, and then you're holding them accountable to that. So I see so many people put somebody in that district manager position, but then they're constantly bypassing them, because they want to get stuff done. And you can't do that. You have to, if you find something as your level, you have to report to the next level down of what you found, and then they have to do their part of it to get it changed at the store level.
Yeah, so it sounds like you guys have been very good about making sure that the delegation process takes place. And a lot of people struggle with this, especially for an owner. This is one of the hardest things to do, is to properly delegate. And so what was your strategy, your tactic as you guys were growing multiple locations to properly delegate and nope, this is your job now. I need you to take care of this.
Yeah. And I will say, me and my father are partners. My father still works very heavily in the one store mainly. And he also has a radio show. He was also coaching with ShopFix for a while. My father may not have mastered the skills of delegation quite as much as I have. I think I just had to, it was a matter of survival. So I have small kids. I have a 5-year-old and about to turn 8-year-old. I'm very involved in the community from a volunteer aspect and a networking aspect. Mm-hmm. We started adding stores. I had to learn to delegate. There was no way I was going to be able to handle it all. And I don't think, if you haven't mastered delegation, you're slowing your growth down tremendously. You can't grow if you're not willing to hand over tasks to people, and you can't just hand them over. You have to like hand them over, follow up on if they're doing it right, give them coaching on if they're doing it right. And it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
And some people will either just not hand it over then, or they'll get themselves in trouble because they handed stuff over and they didn't actually follow any of the other steps of, making it a learned, part of the next person's position.
Gotcha. So for these processes, do you typically have it like all written out like in a binder? Like here, this is like the process, or is it more like no, you sit down and you're like, no, this is going to be what the steps look like, and they are kind of creating the process together with you? Like, well, what does that look like?
When it comes to higher level management, a lot of the responsibilities and the actions that they are responsible are in documents that they are given 100%. Nothing is written out in stone on how they accomplish it, though, because I think when you have these higher level positions, if you dictate too much how they get the job done, you can almost shoot yourself in the foot, because they may or may not buy into the process. They may know a better way to do it. I think one of the biggest things is realizing that maybe, I don't know that I was the best manager. I think people can manage better than me. I think I'm really good at putting the systems in place and holding people accountable once a week to what. So I'm great at auditing, at setting up the clear expectations, auditing a performance, and then during scheduled meetings each week, going over how they did and coaching them on things. But going into the stores and taking that feedback and turning it into changes in the store. I did it at one point, and maybe it's just because I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah.
They're better than me. They're going to find better methods at it than me. I know how to take the data that I can receive from, the systems we have in place, things like ShopRocket and TechMetric and things like. I'm better at taking all of that, and then feedback that I get from just different team members throughout the week, and providing everything I have to my leaders that are below me, and letting them implement what needs to be done too. And if I outlined in detail exactly how they did that too much, then I would be taking away part of what makes them good managers.
Yeah, just handcuffing their growth a little bit, just because you're, it's this way. And yeah, I 100% agree. Finding people that are better than you at something around you within your company is so valuable. Like you should not be the smartest one at every single thing, because then more than likely your company will fail.
Yeah. And I don't want to say that, when I talk about managers having freedom of time, or district managers having freedom of time maybe being a negative thing, I don't want to like anyone to think that I keep track of them all day. I don't. They do have a freedom of time, but they've grown it, or it's kind of been a slow process while they really get embedded and invested in the company from more of like a emotional connection type way. You bring in new people to be a district manager quickly, and if you don't hire a rock star or something like that, you could very easily have somebody in the position getting paid really high that doesn't care about your company necessarily. And I feel like that's where some of the issues may come in. But I don't even dictate how they spend their time or anything like that. They know they need to be at certain stores a certain amount of time to get the stuff done they have to get done. But I don't feel the need to micromanage their time or even how they do things. I just give them, what I expect to be done, how it's being tracked, and then they're going to get my feedback. They have to take my feedback from, how the previous week went and what's going on. And as long as they make improvements based on that, if it's not, if it wasn't all positive, then we're good. That's what I expect, is if I see or have items that are not within expectation, that they make improvements on them even small, continuous improvements.
Yeah.
But that's mainly what, I ask of them, is that they make changes if needed based on my feedback.
Gotcha. Okay. And so what kind of like obviously no leader will be like automatically perfect. I assume unless you every person you put into a leader position has stayed there. So in terms of that runway you give them to make adjustments. So I know like 'cause some people are like how long do I give it? Some people are super firm on the higher fat or higher slow fire fast sort of thing. And so like but that gets a little bit blurry in terms of like are you really coaching them or like so how are you going about sort of seeing to make sure that those improvements are taking place and how much time are you giving that to happen?
I do agree with the higher slow for these higher up positions. So I
Mhm.
feel like if you do so and you're not lazy about the hiring process, you're going to eliminate a large percentage of chances that they're not going to work out, that
Yeah.
they're not the right person. So doing your due diligence there, having a robust hiring process for those employees is important. Once they're hired, I look at attitude and you know, in effort just
Mm.
as much or more than skill. Because I feel like if you didn't hire somebody that was skilled for the position, then you need to start working on, or you need to go back and work on your ability to be an MSO,
Yeah.
and run multiple stores to begin with. So
No.
let's hope you hired somebody that has the skill at least to do it.
Mm.
But if you're running into a situation where they're not putting in the effort, they don't care, or whatever it may be, I don't have a lot of patience for that. That won't last very long
Mm.
with me. And if they make mistakes in the beginning, as long as they don't keep making the same mistake,
Mm.
if they have the effort and they care and a good attitude, and if they make some mistakes and they correct them quickly and don't make them again, then I feel like we're moving in the right direction and I can work with that. But if they've got a bad attitude, or they don't seem like they really want to put the effort in, or they're making the same mistake over and over again, that's something that we will probably have to find someone else, because it's such an important position, and it's
Mm.
normally an expensive position when you're talking about upper management and an MSO, and you can't. Every day is money. I mean, thousands of dollars.
Mm.
I mean, tens of thousands of dollars in each store. I mean, it's so you can't have someone over that very long that isn't going to at least try to improve things. So yeah, you pretty much have to make those calls pretty quick. If for some reason during the hiring process you still got somebody that fooled you when it came
Yeah.
to some of those categories, and it can happen. I'm not saying
Mm.
it can't. I mean, sometimes I question hiring skills all the time. Like, man, how did that one happen? But you learn from it, and you move on. But yeah, it's important that they have the good work, like a good work ethic, and are willing to. And you can't have a big ego. You can't have a big ego as a shop owner, and you can't have a big ego as a district manager. They have to know how to delegate.
Mm.
They can't be the one that comes in and, I say this about shop owners just trying to step out of a single store. They can't do it because they like being the daily hero, right? They like wearing the red cape and coming in and saving the day. I mean, I did. When you're a manager, all the answers come through you, and it's you enjoy that for a little while.
Yeah.
All the solutions are made by you, and then you start to realize that really limits you,
Hmm.
right? Like if you have to solve all the problems, not only is that exhausting, but really good management is about passing the ability to solve problems down. And it goes all the way down to our store managers that have been able to pass a lot of the solution finding down to advisors and techs. They don't have to go to the manager to solve a problem. They know what's expected of them, and they feel confident making decisions in their position that fit their expectations. And that's when you empower that position. And so the district manager does the same thing with the manager. he's not solving all the problems or making all the decisions. He does to do some
Hmm.
that make it past that are just, the manager, but he empowers those managers to make decisions. And then the good managers learn to let their team make decisions. And at that point, when the team's making the right decisions, that's when that manager has more time. He can now help another manager with his store, partially. So that's kind of the structure that we've developed, and it really works. And it just about comes down to there's very few problems that I solve related to daily operations. They solve all their problems, and most of them are solved just between the techs and the advisors.
That's amazing. I think that's one of the coolest things as like being a business owner is when you see your team solve problems without you. I think it's one of like it was a crazy thing. Like so we leverage Slack within our company. It's like there's different group chats and things like that that I'm just added on just like to be there, and I can just peek at messages every once in a while. But like seeing the team just like collaborate together, just like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Like they don't need you as the owner for every little thing. You can see how intelligent, how amazing they are as a team together without you. And I think that it sounds like there's a lot of that
Mm-hmm.
throughout building the proper structure. And so I wanted to dig in a little bit in terms of, I know you mentioned weekly meetings and then kind of building that rapport and the relation. How did you come about like, no, this is the amount of time that it takes? And is it a Zoom meeting? Is it nope, they come to you and you meet in person and you found that to be way better? Like, how does that work?
I think this is another structure of MSO that you figure out what works best for you. We are strongly rooted in the book Traction, so our
Yep.
meetings kind of follow that formula. We do them via Teams because we're a Microsoft based company as
Ah,
far as our email platforms and everything, and we do it midweek, early Wednesday mornings. So
okay.
that's because beginning of the weeks and end of the week can get a little crazy. And then also it's enough time to still make changes within the week if you see some things going astray in one of the shops. So we do a midweek. They are about an hour, and from there, we were able to plan the rest of the week and make correct course corrections if needed. We're tracking numbers daily, so it's
Hmm.
very important that if we see something going off track, that we catch it quickly. We figure out what we got to do to change it, and get it back on track. And I think that's very important. Or one of the things that some shops lack is they'll go a whole month and then realize, oh, we had a bad month, and
Hmm.
it's just so unfortunate because you can, with today's technology, numbers, CRM systems, I mean, you can make some changes within a day
Yeah.
in your shop so easily. You can send out a text blast and you'll have more phone calls, within 24 hours, hopefully a few more appointments. You can do callbacks, obviously. There's just so much that if you just sit down and track how they're doing and then come up with an action plan, provide some feedback, coach them, I mean, you can get it going in the right direction very quickly. Um, so that's kind of the thought process behind that midweek meeting, is that it provides us enough time to make some corrections and still affect the week if we need to.
Okay, no, that's awesome. And traction for those that are, it talks about EOS, and that operating system. Something like we're going to implement that this year as well. As I feel like it's time for me as a company as well. So it's awesome that you implemented that.
Yeah. And I would
And
say the meetings are the main thing we implemented. We went through the beginning of, identifying who we were and, our structure and all of that. And I feel like that's something you have to redo more often. But the meetings are the main thing that we implemented from that book. But yeah, the EOS, all of that. I mean, there's so much knowledge there.
yes, no,
So,
definitely
and you could hire somebody even to help you, implement it
implement
in your
it. Yeah,
business if you
yeah.
want to make sure you do the whole thing 100%.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so my next question was in terms of how many people like report to you. How do you figure out? So obviously you can't have everyone roll up to you and you have all these meetings throughout every single day. So how did you go about like okay, it's going to be like 3 people or 4 people or whatever it is. Obviously, as you build more shops, you can't just keep having, oh, that leader now report to you. So like, how does that sort of lay out and look?
Our our whole structure changes just about annually to every 2 years, just based on how fast we're growing. We're about to implement or open up another shop in a couple weeks.
Mhm.
That's going to be another Georgia shop. So what we're realizing now is that we have enough in Georgia and South Carolina to maybe we start the structure of our operations
Mm.
department will change to some extent because of this additional store and the way it's all going to lay out. But I think that's important to do every time you add a store or two, because it changes how everyone's time needs to be allotted throughout the week and everything. So the ops will change because of an additional store, the operations side of the business. And I kind of view it as, I have my operations side and I have my corporate office. I would say if you were kind of describing my role, I'm very focused on expansion and growth, but I'm a little bit still of the connection between my operations department and the corporate office,
Mhm.
because I'm making sure that they're all working together. And I think eventually I want to hand that responsibility off to someone else, because I feel like somebody would be better at that than me.
Mhm.
I have so many, meetings and things such as this that, I mean, I love doing this kind of
Yeah.
stuff, that I might not be as good at it as someone else would. But, making sure that, on a corporate side, we have like marketing, we have bookkeeping, we have HR, making sure that all of those are coordinated and in sync with our whole operations department is important. So, you have the head of the operations side of everything, and then you have these people over here, kind of support roles,
Mhm.
and just making sure that everybody knows what's going on at all times. Because at the end of the day, those sometimes people get really caught up on the corporate office and who's all in it and who's
Mhm.
doing what and stuff. You forget that it's completely a support. They're all support roles to the
Yeah.
operations side. The operations side, and if none of them are helping the operations side make more money, then their roles are, useless.
Mm.
So I would say, as far as who reports to me, the people technically working in the corporate office do to some extent, and then um, the head of the operations, and then the district managers, those lead managers, they are. And I'm given terms or titles just to kind of describe what they do. But to be honest, we're not real big on titles
Yep.
in our company. And that's just kind of been like a thing, just kind of one of our core values. It's not about necessarily its title, it's about, what you do or what you help the company do. And so these guys are technically district managers, leading operation department, but they don't go around saying that all the time. They just go out there and do their jobs. And that, I do the same thing. I don't go around saying I'm the owner of C&C. I go around saying I'm with C&C. And and I just, like I said, that's kind of just based on our core values.
I love that.
Um
I love that. And so how many employees again are we looking at across your organization now?
70, 70 right
70.
now, somewhere
That's
around there. Yeah.
That's incredible. And so I think for those of you, again, hopefully still watching, like the importance of delegation when you're managing 70 people, I think it's inevitable. You absolutely have to, but I think you definitely help build the framework and understanding of how people should be doing this. And you can't just, again, some people are like, yeah, I'm just gonna hand it off, it'll be fine. But you do need to have that recurring meeting and again, implementing and ensuring that yes, said things did happen from the last meeting from week to week. And I think without
Mm-hmm.
meeting regularly, that won't happen. I'm always been one like I don't enjoy meetings the most in terms of like, but understanding like the purpose behind the meeting makes a difference in terms of like what kind of happens and takes place there. But I know you're also big on building that relationship between kind of like yourself and some of your leaders. And so how do you also dabble into like, hey, like no, like yes, you have a role to play, but then also like fostering that right culture like with them.
I think it helps. I've known many of my managers and district managers. I've known them for decades.
Oh, okay.
So, we went to school together,
Uh-huh.
so it's there's already like a trust there.
Yep.
And so if I tell them what's, I believe is in their best interest, they already trust that I am looking out for their best interest, and that helps. I think new people, you do have to build that trust factor, and you have to align, your goals with their goals. You have to
Mhm.
really get to know them and figure out what they really want and what they're trying to accomplish, and then align that with what you're trying to accomplish. And um, if I also make sure that they receive a lot of leadership training, and we're part of several different, shop fixes. One, they can watch those videos. They are also a part of the master class
Mhm.
platform where I encourage them to watch certain series from certain providers on that. So I try to get them to partake in leadership training and personal growth stuff, and then it's just building the trust. I've benefited from the fact that I've known them a long time, so that trust is there with
Yep.
a lot of them. But I think it's just important that you build the trust early on with them. And if you say you're going to do something, do it. I know
Oh, yes.
we've all done said we were going to do something, and then it slipped through the cracks, but we don't. I really started to realize a while back just how much every time that happens, um, you can really kind of hurt that trust factor.
Hmm.
And you don't want that doubt there. So if you don't know if you're gonna do it, then just don't say don't say you're gonna do it. And that helps there. But that's just that's how I see it. I think once you build the trust, they know that you are looking out for them just as much as yourself. That can help, definitely as you move forward with them,
Yeah.
and how on board they are with everything.
Amazing. And so, like, kind of the last question you talked about trust, delegation, consistency. I'm sure all those things has allowed you not to be in the shop every single day. And so, how often are you even having to go into your six shops?
I do not have to visit any store right now. I visit, I would say, one or two of our stores a week.
Mhm.
I enjoy being there.
Mhm.
And if there's something going on, like a major change or something, it might be a little different. I might, be a part of that. But yeah, I would say that I visit a store or two a week just for one reason or another. I don't see every store every week. And, some stores are kind of remote stores I haven't been to, in a few weeks, a month kind of thing. But I check in with people a fair amount just to see how they're doing, because I try to know all of our employees to some extent, and how they're doing, and things like that. I miss being more involved with people at a store level. Just I don't necessarily miss the operation side of it, but I miss just the daily interaction with a lot of these people, because I've known some of them. We've been blessed with having them keeping employees for a long time.
Yep.
We've had some people that have been with us decades, and I
Mm.
just don't get to see them as much as I, used to. But outside of that, I'm very blessed that they are running the stores as well they do, so that I can focus on, everything that I focus on, which stems mainly around, like I said, the corporate office and expanding the business
Yeah.
further.
And by no means are you not, doesn't mean you're not busy. You're still very, very busy. I know. I mean, you're coaching a bunch of people, you're running all your shops, you're doing so much community work. Your son's going to be the next great dirt bike rider. You go travel to all his different races. And so you're definitely by no means not like limited on the amount of time that you have. So I think you definitely, these processes for those, again, watching and listening, they're very crucial, very important, but they work. And it's allowed Amanda here to accomplish so much within a 24-hour day. So it's pretty crazy how much you are able to do. And so I am appreciative of you coming on here. So one final question for the as kind of a parting gift for everyone. Usually I just try to ask every owner lately is if you had one book that you would recommend an owner read, what would that book be?
I guess I would have to say Traction, because I think if you are an MSO, that's a very powerful book for you to read and understand structure and organization. I tried to read it early, like I think when we had like maybe our third store. I don't quite remember. And I wasn't ready for it. I was like, oh no, this is overkill. And I put it away. And then we got a little bigger. And like I said, I don't remember the exact time frame. And I picked it up and it was just like lightning bolts went off in my head. Like I realized like how much we needed the structure.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say traction from the standpoint of, one MSO to another MSO, trying to identify the best structure to organize your company moving forward. I would say that that's one of the most powerful ones.
Definitely a great book. It's up here on the shelf over here, right there. But there's also one like that Gino Wickman wrote that is more story based for those that like, because traction is pretty technical, and so like it was like kind of walking through the steps of structure. It's very important. But if you're more like, oh, you're gonna glaze your eyes over it, he wrote another one that again goes with the same principle, but it's a lot more story based. And I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. But
I've read a few of them. The EOS life, I believe, is a good one too. That's where, he really talks about just the principles of like this EOS life. And I liked how it kind of laid out, how to delegate, and really only keep the things on your plate that you enjoy and you're good at. Everything else, like find someone else to do that because they're going to do it better. And yeah, his whole collection is good. But yeah, I don't know if that's the one you're referring to, but he does have some that are an easier read. Because I will say it's not like I know so many people that have started it and not finished it because it's just it's kind of a wordy and you feel like you go 2 pages in and you should put it down and start working.
I know for sure, exactly.
So it's hard to even get going. But yeah, that I'd probably recommend anything to do with EOS for a business owner.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Amanda, again. And for those that maybe like, certain things resonate with them a lot here, and they're like, I want to ask Amanda a certain question that they have. What would be the best way to reach out to you?
They can email me at amanda@shopfixacademy.com. We didn't really talk about it, but I am one of ShopFix's coaches, and ShopFix has been a huge part of our growth as well, because it's mainly about community, peer-to-peer interaction, and that's a great that's been a great source of growth, continued growth for us as well. But if you want to reach me, you can email me at that email address, amanda@shopfixacademy.com. I'm happy to help you. I'll share what resources I can that I use to kind of keep our management structure together and hold them accountable. I'm happy to answer questions as well.
Perfect. All right, well, Amanda, thank you again so much. And for those still watching, thank you again for being here with us. Like or subscribe if you haven't already. But again, I'm Kelsey Oshel with Auto Repair Marketing. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.